Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
A lot of teachers in the news lately, and a teaching scandal was pointed out to me by David, who sent me notes. That Steve checks out of Florida, and this is crazy. According to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Pasco County teachers have been arrested in an alleged fraudulent testing scam. ABCActionNews.com ran the story, and this is shameful. It is so shameful that you've got teachers cheating on tests, and apparently they're cheating in such a way that the students know they're cheating, and the teachers are helping everyone cheat to improve some kind of metrics. But of course, it's not teaching anybody anything other than, oh, we're going to cheat to get ahead. And it's, like I said, it's shameful. Agents with the FDLE arrested 3 former Pasco County high school teachers that allegedly took part in a testing scam over 4 years. 4 years. They arrested the teachers who were 38 years old, 47 years old, 31 years old, and they were all alleged to be part of this testing scam. According to the authorities, an anonymous tip from a former student. Well, we got one hero here. At Hudson High School was the first signal that something might be wrong. The tipster said they had cheated on a certification exam for agriculture, educators, services, and technology, and that is AEST. The FDLE said 2 more tips came in, and the AEST conducted a statewide audit of the exam results. Now, here's the deal. The test itself has between 50 and 100 questions, and it usually takes 30 minutes to complete. So 30 minutes to complete the test. The FDLE said the audit found students at Hudson High sometimes finished the test in just 5 minutes, and the school had much higher pass rates than any other school in the state. That's when the FDLE was called in by the Pasco County Sheriff's Office. So the law got involved. And I've had people want to argue with some of these things. What I'm talking about here is the use of statistics to determine if something is off. And I mentioned statistics a couple of videos back, and I got somebody very, very upset complaining about me simply talking about statistics. And I'm not claiming to be a mathematician. But when they take all the score results across the entire state and say, okay, let's look at all score results at this school, this school, this school, and every single school across the state. And you'll see some variations, but when you see one with, woo, a big spike, you got to look at it and go, okay, something's going on there. Now, that's not proof. That won't convict anybody of a crime, but that will draw the attention of somebody. So the first thing that happened here was somebody phoned in an anonymous tip. And anonymous tips, by the way, are almost worthless. Think about it, because otherwise, police could say, oh, we got an anonymous tip, and then just do anything they wanted to. So anonymous tips generally are even viewed skeptically by the police, because they're like, anybody can phone an anonymous tip about somebody they don't like. So when somebody said, there's cheating happening at this school, but I can't tell you who I am or why I know, and goodbye, and hangs up. Well, yeah, okay, whatever. But somebody thought, well, let's take a look at some statistics. Let's take a look at the numbers. And they discover that there is a spike in the scores despite the fact that it's backwards in how long these students take to take the test, the amount of time that they use up to take the test. So they can do the test super fast and much, much better than every other school in the state. And this is after somebody said there's cheating going on over there. So now you've got somebody's attention. FDLE said the audit found that students at Hudson High sometimes finished the test in just 5 minutes. That's when they called in the Pasco County Sheriff's Office. The investigation from FDLE uncovered teachers were paid a bonus of $25 to $50 each for each test that was passed by students, and the school district received hundreds of dollars for each passed test. Now, that in and of itself might seem odd. I'm not sure who's paying that money. But simply paying somebody for test results doesn't necessarily mean someone's cheating. I mean, parents pay their kids for grades all the time. You get straight A's, they'll flip you $50. It's not cheating. So, according to the FDLE, Agents investigating, however, found that none of the mandatory requirements were followed by the 3 teachers who were arrested, including having a test proctored. So the tests were not proctored. Now that's a problem. Again, doesn't guarantee that people are cheating. I can tell you right now, I have proctored exams, and I've actually had exams of mine proctored by others. And I taught at the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law School for 10 years. And when I had written exams for students that were administered during finals, I would show up during the time of my final, but I would go sit in another professor's class and proctor that exam. Some other professor would sit in my class and proctor my exam. It's a variety of reasons why they do that, but one of which is simply that you want a disinterested party proctoring the exam. So there can't possibly be anything untoward happening. And I remember, I mentioned before, in a couple of videos I've done about final exams, where I would often do multiple choice final exams in law school, very unusual. And I'd have a fact pattern and then 4 potential answers. And I'd tell people 1 answer is correct, therefore 3 answers are incorrect. And if you got the time, the best thing you do is rule out the 3 wrong answers while you found the 1 right answer. Never stop when you think, oh, that's the right answer. Rule out the other ones, because you can rule out the other ones. And once in a while, I'd have a student who'd rewrite one of the answers and go, well, if this was true, you don't get to change the answers. It's pick one. And I remember having that happen one time that really I found frustrating, to the point where the next time I taught that class, I mentioned it. I said, by the way, trust me, I've gone over the questions and the answers with a fine-tooth comb. So if you're reading an answer and it's wrong, it's wrong. And if you found what you believe to be 4 wrong answers, reread them because one of them is correct. One of them, I assure you it is. And a professor was proctoring my exam who was unfamiliar with the subject area of my exam. And he actually came over to the room where I was proctoring, down the hallway. And he sticks his head in the door and he goes, Mr. Lehto, come over here. I go, what's that? And he goes, I've had a couple students come up to me and they ask me about this question. I go, yeah? And he goes, did you mean to write this? I go, yes. And I'm looking at him like, dude, students tricked you into coming down to ask me if my answers are correct or not? And he looks at me and he goes, oh. I go, yeah, that's not the correct answer. And I point and I go, that's the correct answer. And he goes, oh, okay. And he left. So 2 students had apparently come up to him and said, I think the professor made a mistake. All 4 of these are wrong. So there's a mistake here. And instead of him saying, do the exam like you're supposed to, he actually came down and asked me. That's like, gotcha. So the FDLE, however, said the arrested teachers took the administrator exams together, and after recording the test questions, they prepared study guides for their students, which were exact copies of the certification exams. So the interesting thing here is, it very well could be that the students didn't realize that there's cheating going on until they recognized, oh, these are the exact same questions that were on the study guide. But the teachers got advanced copies of the exam, or the exams earlier than they had to use them, found out what the answers were, and then prepared study guides for the students, which were basically questions from the test with the correct answers. That's your study guide. So they were exact copies of the certification exams. Investigators of the FDLE said the 3 teachers recruited students to help pull more students into the scheme, and that more than 200 students took the tests. FDLE alleged in one case a teacher even took the exam for a student. Well, that would be a problem. And, here's an interesting thing. Apparently, this is not a test that's required of all students. This is the Agriculture, Educators, Services, and Technology test. But there are some tests that are mandated by the state. In Michigan, for instance, they've got tests where they say every single student at a particular age has got to take a proficiency exam. And schools are required to hit certain benchmarks. And if they don't, they can get in trouble and so on and so forth. And so it becomes very, very important. And the administrations often let teachers know this, that we really, really want you to hit the benchmarks here. So we need to have a pass rate of such and such per class. And we've heard of cheating kicking in at that level also. But here, apparently, it was a test that wasn't mandatory, but they got rewarded for students who passed it. So they became very, very aggressive in how they got students to pass it. Additionally, FDLE said exceptional student education students routinely had exams taken for them, and often the ESE students didn't know they were even scheduled to take the exam. So a student finds out that they took the test and passed it because the test was taken by somebody else and nobody notified them. So the weird part about all of this, net result before they got caught, was a bunch of students got great results on exams they'd taken. And of course, these great results were achieved through cheating. So let's assume this is one big lesson plan. Life is a learning experience, right? The best way to teach everyone a lesson here is to throw the book hard at these teachers if, in fact, they're found to have done what they're accused of doing. And that'll teach them a lesson. And it'll also teach the students a lesson, because the students can go, oh, that seemed funny at the time, but now people are going to jail. Maybe we should study that. And it's a shameful experience. It really is. I have mentioned my family with the teachers going all the way back. And I've always been a firm believer in the value of education. And I'm not talking about if you have a college degree, you're good. If you don't have a college degree, you're bad. Education can take many forms. And so I've met extremely smart people who know a lot in many different fields. And not all education is book learning in a class. So if you get trained in a skill, that's an education. And you'll discover that if you get trained in anything, that it actually helps you in life. And I'm a big believer in that. So I think that education is extremely important. And I've mentioned this before, I think, but I had a very good friend of mine who told me, he said, Steve, one of the strangest things, and I know he didn't coin the idea, but he passed it along to me. He said, education is one of the rare products where the consumer is happy not getting what they paid for. He goes, look at all the people who go to college and skip classes, screw around, don't even try. And but you paid for those classes. Why don't you go? And it's a combination of a bunch of things. But it's quite often that people go, oh, I just need the degree. Well, you're there for an education and you're paying for the education. You should get the education. And so the sad part is that these teachers could have taught these students what was necessary to pass the exam. Instead, simply worked on how to cheat and pass the exam without all that learning. So, like I said, if you learn a trade, you learn a skill. I know people, some of the most competent people I've ever met at doing their jobs did not have college degrees. Simply because they found something they loved doing. They figured, okay, here's how I'm going to get into this field and learn how to do something. And picked up training along the way, whether it's through an apprenticeship or on-the-job training or having a mentor or having somebody just simply say, hey, look, come work for me. I think you're smart. I'm going to teach you what you need to know. And that's an education. That's an education. So I've always prized and valued education. And I've always, admired teachers in particular. And I know a lot of people who say, for instance, I respect first responders. Thank police officers for their service and in the military, right? Well, likewise, I'm the same with teachers. I think that teachers' jobs, especially lately, have been thankless quite often, and it's a difficult job. And I've known people who've taught in every spectrum of possible place out there for a teacher to teach. And I'm talking about I've known teachers at private schools who had very, very cushy settings. I'm not saying it's easier to teach there, But it's very, very different than teaching in a big school in, like, say, Flint, Michigan, or Detroit public school system, or something like that. And it's just very, very different. And so I've known teachers in all these different settings, and I have the most immense amount of respect for them. But I personally think that people who cheat on tests are problematic. And when you have teachers cheating on tests for their students, I understand that there's a potentially misguided motive there, but they ain't helping the students. In fact, they're teaching the students a very, very bad lesson. It's a disservice to the students. And so I think it's important that they, if convicted, throw the books at these people. So I guess you can throw the book at 3 people, but it's one of those weird situations I've never extrapolated that way before. So David sent it, thanks a lot. But abcactionnews.com ran the story. We'll see what happens. 3 Pasco County teachers arrested in alleged fraudulent testing scam. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success.